Welcome to the world. It was once famously quoted by the celebrated poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge that I wish our clever young poets would remember my homely definitions of prose and poetry, that is, prose is words in the best order and poetry is the best words in the best order. Such was the impact of poets on culture from around the 16th century to late 19th century. Poets all over the world were inspired to write subtle pieces that captured the concentrated emotions of mankind and released them right at the moment when the reader reads by the carefully crafted verses. Poets didn't limit themselves to the common day-to-day activities but even covered themes like war, corruption, and many more. Today, these poems are considered a valuable artwork and their manuscripts well preserved to preserve their integrity in depicting human virtues and responses through the power of language. Many poets have been widely remembered for their contribution to the English language that sealed them a permanent spot in the course of history for generations to come. Maya Angelou. Born on April 4, 1928, Maya Angelou is an American poet who rose to critical acclaim with her work I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. She has published numerous autobiographies, essays, and poems mainly focusing on race and identity. In her literary life spanning for over 50 years she has received many awards and a litany of honorary degrees from across the world for an outstanding contribution to political ideas and standpoints through her works. She is the most famous among the modern-day contemporary writers. Though her poems did attract negative reviews, she has been well received and appreciated by social activists and readers across the globe. Robert Burns. One of the most famous poets in America's literature front, Robert Frost is the recipient of 4 Pulitzer Prizes. His writings generally portrayed the typical rural life of the English countryside. His mastery over the rhythm with which he composed his lines stand testimonial to his being called upon the iconic literary figure of America. One of his most revered poems is The Road Not Taken, which has the lines "I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference," that is often quoted by many writers. Born on March 26, 1874, he died at the age of 88 at Boston, USA. Rabindranath Tagore. Born on May 7, 1861, he was the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in Literature for his work Gitanjali in 1913 that was reviewed upon as being original and reviving spiritual and sympathetic feelings. Many of his Bengali poems lost their beauty in translation. A symbol of Bengal Renaissance, he modernized Bengali art and covered topics ranging from political issues to the personal ones. He let go his knighthood to protest against the infamous Jallianwala Bagh massacre. One of the greatest poets the subcontinent has ever produced, he founded the Viswa Bharati Institute. One of his most famous works was Where the Mind is Without Fear. Lord Byron was born on January 22, 1788. He was a prolific writer and is best known for his work Don Juan. He was active in politics and resented his competitors by his literary works. He is one of the most lauded poets of Britain, although his personal life was black-marked by scandals and credit issues. He became a part of the popular culture in his time. He succumbed to a violent fever on April 19, 1824. Sir Walter Raleigh. Sir Walter Raleigh was an English explorer, soldier, and writer who was imprisoned in the Tower of London and eventually put to death after being accused of treason by James I. Before serving in the Huguenot army in France, he studied at Oxford, and became a favorite of Queen Elizabeth after serving in her army in Ireland. He was knighted in 1585, and within 2 years became captain of the Queen's Guard. Between 1584 and 1589 he established a colony near Roanoke Island which he named Virginia. Much of his writings and poetry from this time were destroyed. William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare was baptized on April 26, 1564, in Stratford-upon-Avon, England. From roughly 1594 onward he was an important member of the Lord Chamberlain's Men Company of theatrical players. Written records give little indication of the way in which Shakespeare's professional life molded his artistry. All that can be deduced is that over the course of 20 years, Shakespeare wrote plays that capture the complete range of human emotion and conflict. Christopher Marlowe. Born in Canterbury, England, in 1564. While Christopher Marlowe's literary career lasted less than 6 years, and his life only 29 years, his achievements, most notably the play The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus, ensured his lasting legacy. Robert Burns. Poet Robert Burns is considered one of the most famous characters of Scotland's cultural history. He is best known as a pioneer of the Romantic movement for his lyrical poetry and his rewriting of Scottish folk songs, many of which are still well known across the world today. He published his first collection of poetry to raise enough money to make it to Jamaica, where he hoped to find work. William Blake. An English poet, painter, and printmaker. Largely unrecognized during his lifetime, Blake is now considered a seminal figure in the history of both the poetry and visual arts of the Romantic Age. His prophetic poetry has been said to form what is in proportion to its merits the least read body of poetry in the English language. His visual artistry has led one contemporary art critic to proclaim him far and away the greatest artist Britain has ever produced. William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth was born April 7, 1770, in Cockermouth, Cumberland, to John and Anne Cookson Wordsworth, the second of their 5 children. His father was law agent and rent collector for Lord Lonsdale, and the family was fairly well off. After his mother's death in 1778 he was sent to Hawkshead Grammar School, near Windermere. In 1787 he went up to St. John's College, Cambridge. He enjoyed hiking during the long, i.e., summer, vacation of 1788. He tramped around Cumberland County. 2 years later went on a walking tour of France, Switzerland, and Germany, and in 1791, after graduation, trekked through Wales. His enthusiasm for the French Revolution took him to France again in 1791.